Hello, welcome to another Call to Work webinar, TGIF. It's a brilliant one today we've got planned. We're going to be focusing on the wonderful and very interesting world of Christian music, the business side of it, the growth side of it. We might even get to hear a great song or two. Let's see. We wanted to get someone in here that's been here since the start, or maybe before the start, but I'll let him talk about that in a little bit more detail. I saw a shortened version of this presentation at the Christian Music Alliance event, and nothing is really original. But I thought I wanted to give him a chance to do a more extended version of this because it really set the scene well for the genre, and his story winds into that fascinating. It's something I didn't know much about a couple of years ago, and now it's a world that, again, I won't say any more of it, so I'll let him do his thing. Please introduce yourself in the chat so everyone knows who you are. Really appreciate that as well. And without further ado, I'll let him do his own introduction. I'll pass it on to Dennis, and we'll hear about that. So over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, James. Appreciate it. Always interesting to hear introductions because you're thinking, am I that same person that they're talking about? I'm not so sure. Well, my name is O'Neill Dennis. People call me all sorts, including a reversal of my own name. So my actual name is O'Neill Dennis, and people tend to just assume that it's two Irish surnames, so they know best, and they call me Dennis O'Neill. Right. So I answer to both. So Dennis, you'll see going around a lot more. I'm a PR and marketing head. So early on, I understood the value of icebreakers. So 10 years on, and most of the people I deal with still don't actually know what to call me. What a great icebreaker, ongoing, that is. So I am the founder and CEO of Step Forward and the UK Christian Charts. A Step Forward is a multimedia organization that started around the time that I got saved, and thankfully we have a little bit more time here. So I think it's important I kind of just share a little bit of how I got into the space. Thank you, James. So once again, just thank you to James and the guys for
We
having
never
me.
turn down testimonies on these channels. Never.
That's
If we
good.
need to
That's
go over
good.
time, we will. So it's
Yeah.
fine.
Thank you. So I had I was where do I start? Originally in the church, mom's a missionary, passed away last year, but I got dragged to church every day. Back in the days, I used to be in the choir, had a lot of love for musicians. Lots of my friends were artists and stuff. So that's a really eclectic mix of musical interest, if you will. Fast forward to being in this country and dropping out of the faith and then returning to faith in 2012, got baptized in 2013, and really felt that there was something I needed to do. So, really, I have one of those Saul Paul conversion stories. One of those ones where it's like everything gets taken away, you make the mistakes, you go to rock bottom, and that's where you find Jesus or he finds you, right? So that's the shortened version of my testimony. But I remember 3 months before everything fell apart, I had this desire. There was a project I was working on, which was music related, but I felt there was a yearning for something more. The project was going well, but it just felt like something was missing. And this was in the mainstream space as well. So this was before I became a Christian again. And I remember 4 o'clock in the night, some friends were around. We were working on some creative things. Woke up at that time, couldn't rest, couldn't sleep, just wrestling with what something is missing, something is missing. And we were brainstorming at around that time in the morning. The name the Step Forward came to me, and it was like, okay, great. Didn't know what to do with it, so parked the idea. Then everything came crashing down, lost everything, friendships and everything, became suicidal, was homeless for a bit. And in that little recovery period, the name came back to me. And that's the time when I was sleeping on a sofa at my brother's house. And really, his wife at the time was still is a part of the Adventist chorale under Ken Burton, and they were traveling. They were very, very popular, traveling across the whole country and stuff. And I remember I was just downloading all the music that I could find. At that time, I had an old laptop. I don't know if anybody here is old enough to remember those laptops that had the trackball in the middle of the keyboards, right? So I was using that laptop to download literally rip the music, everything I could find, because young Christian wanting to devour everything in the space. And in going through those songs, those tracks, I think I found some peace, and that helped me to just recover myself. And then in a couple of months, I was baptized in 2013, and straight away felt like God is going to use me in the bigger spaces. I'm used to chaos, I'm used to project management, so let me look for the biggest churches I could find, which in my mind was Hillsong at the moment, and ended up attending Hillsong in London. And that wasn't the place for me. Ended up settling down in my family's church, which is a small church based in Croydon with a majority Caribbeans, older people. And I was like, what am I doing here? I'm still there, still wondering what am I doing here, but I'm kind of more trusting of God now. Um, Cutting the story short a bit, that started me on the journey of immersing myself in Christian music. I started traveling around the country, just trying to understand, okay, what do I have? I'm used to the mainstream space. I know what's going on there.
Dennis,
What
just for sorry, just to interrupt, just for context here, what year are we talking about here? Just to date this.
Oh, this happened in 2013. So I started Step Forward in 2014,
Sorry
end
to
of
interrupt. Please
2013,
carry on.
2014. No problem at all. So that was the timeline in terms of when things started. I was traveling around the country, as I said at that time, trying to understand what was going on in the space. That's when I came across words like fragmentation and disunity and north-south divide, all those different things, which was foreign to me as an outsider looking into the Christian space, because I just assumed everybody hugged and kissed and got along like a house on fire. I quickly realized that there are challenges and we're still people, right? Um, that's the journey, that's the starting point of Step Forward. I quickly realized that there was a significant need. And there was a need because there was a lot of talent that had nowhere to go. Lots of people were being Christian artists, but just struggling to find the infrastructure, the mechanism to plug into in order to let their sound, their message be amplified. And that really started our journey. So fast forward 10 years later, Step Forward is now a national organization. We have over 40 odd volunteers from across the country and overseas. The chart system has been doing well, thousands and thousands of voters on a monthly basis. The judging panel has over 150 judges or influencers in the space. The database of UK-based artists, there's over 700 artists now. The pandemic was in some ways a breakthrough for us, because pre-pandemic we were really averaging about 30, 40, 50 songs per month, new songs. Now, when the pandemic hit, we realized we had to move or change the system, because the highest numbers I think we had in the pandemic period was about 130 songs in 1 month, which, if you can think of yourself as a judge and having to listen to 10, 20 songs, much more 120, 130 songs to determine what are the top songs, you understand the scale of the issue we were having. So that's when we changed the system in Step Forward from one main charting system to 12 different charting systems, or 12 different categories. So I'll show you our website in a moment to underscore just the work that we're doing. Pretty significant in my humble opinion for the scene. Another big thing that we came across when I started was this kind of divide between the different ethnic concerns or different groups or demographics and stuff like that. And it still exists today, but we've seen a much better coming together, if you will, of the different sounds, the different genres, the different ethnicities. And London, as you all know, the UK is a melting pot for that, and that's really a good thing. So now, whereas before we were running one chart system that had rock and metal and worship and rap and all of that, now we have 12 different charting systems. So you have your contemporary worship separate from your rap, separate from your indie folk acoustic, separate from your rock and metal. And that's allowed a whole breathing space for artists, creatives who are doing things that are perhaps not necessarily suited for the within the four walls of the church, but are more aimed at outside the four walls. So there's just a diversity in terms of the vehicle or the mechanism that we have put in place, and everybody is can be included. So I wanted to just reason with you guys today, just about how much things have changed and how much things have grown over the years, because I think it's pretty significant, and I think it's something that we should all get involved in. Recently, I've been talking a lot on just a couple of scriptures, and one of them that's at the heart of Step Forward and what we do is Romans 12, verse 10, which speaks about showing brotherly love to each other and honoring each other. And that has become the culture of a Step Forward, because we think that for music, but also for any industry, anything you do in life, the call is to love each other, which is the greatest promise, right? And to honor each other. So that then means that we kind of go a little bit overboard in the work that we do at Step Forward, just because that's our guiding principle. So how can we show more love, and how can we honor and serve you more than we did yesterday or last week or last month? So that kind of drives us. So we're kind of gotten known to be really crazy in our faith and in how much we serve others. But another scripture that we've been really putting into practice recently is just that scripture that speaks about, just shining your light from a, I'm paraphrasing here, I'm sure you know the scripture, just shining your light from the rooftop, from the hilltop, just letting whatever it is that you do be seen and be known and be heard. And we think that's really important when you consider that recently, I'm sure you probably would have heard as well, the Bible Society, um, uh, their research that says, about, 20% increase or a significant increase in Gen Zs attending churches, and stuff like that. What's the context is important, and the music fits into that, and that's why we are working so hard, because we're just mindful that something has shifted, something has changed, and it's not something new. It's something that God has been maneuvering and manufacturing and working on for time, and nobody can take credit for, oh, I did it or you did it or whatever. It's like it's something that's been at work for years and years. So when we started, north-south divide, that isn't really there anymore. Fragmentation, the scene is more united now than it's ever been, right? Disunity, actually, as I said, we're more united now than we ever have been. And how has that come about? It's come about because there's this hunger and this fearlessness amongst the generation for seeing God's spirit, just literally poured out. And that was a promise as well. So what does that mean in context to the music scene, the music space? I'll just share some of the things that we've come across over the years. What we've come across over the years is that there's a rise in um, a diverse creative talent. And what I mean by that is uh, contemporary worship might be the biggest genre, but what do you do with R&B soul? What do you do with poetry and spoken word? What do you do with rap? What do you do with indie folk acoustic? What do you do with those genres? There is um, music is being consumed more than it ever has, and that's again because of the digital rise, the digital technologies that are now at our disposal, and just how much we consume. And the pandemic taught us that as well. We learned so much because everybody was stuck in, and what do you do? We're binging Netflix, we're watching YouTube more than we ever have before. Music has now naturally found its place in a way that it didn't before the pandemic, and I think that's just again a natural progression. How are we meeting that challenge has become the talking point of all the groups that are majority of the groups that I've been in, and that has been a significant conversation that's been driven not just by young or old or by, different, like any one group over the other. Everybody is doing more. And I think that is significant. Every person, irrespective of their age, irrespective of their likes or dislikes, is actually doing more. So some things might be driven by a Gen Z grouping, but actually the older generation isn't left out. They're still doing significantly more than they have ever been doing, which is why we can track our database of 700 artists. And when we break that down, we find that actually the age groups are very nicely spread, right? So it's not just, your 18 to 24 year olds. We're seeing the 60, 70 year olds are just as active as the younger generation. And that is really significant for us because it means that as we progress, as we move forward, it's almost like God is drawing people back to himself through whatever means, and music naturally is playing a huge role in that. What we're seeing as well is that the messaging has been a lot more precise, in the sense that there was a time when people were perhaps, I would say, probably not as confident sharing their faith, but all of a sudden we have celebrity endorsements. We have people at in every area of life who are more confident about saying, this is who I am, this is who I represent, this is what my faith is. And we're seeing that in turn give rise to others who were perhaps a little bit lacking in confidence and stuff. They're now active, they're now out on the streets, they're now sharing their content. And we're seeing that boldness really permeate through the entire Christian and gospel music space, which again is significant. In terms of platforms, what we're also noticing is that there's a rise, naturally, again, hinged on technology, of just information at our disposal in a way that it wasn't there before. Just to give context as well, last year we were we were included in what was called the Grow Music program, which was a partnership between BPI, Abbey Road Studios, and London and Partners. It was a first time project, never been done before. And the whole idea was to identify a number of startups or scale ups, and to literally give them a 3 month worth of investment and support to allow them to start up or to scale up their business activities. We were the only blatantly Christian organization amongst the 26 organizations. So we're still in the first cohort, and it was so successful that they've started a second cohort now. And what we found was that we were in the mix of tech companies, startups and stuff, who were at the cutting edge of the industry of technology. And we had to really look around to see, why are we here? It's almost like imposter syndrome a little bit, because it's like, man, how did we get here? But it was the work that we're doing was just evident. And what is that work? Just to give you context as well, because we were getting so much music coming into us, we didn't really know what to do. And we recognized that we had to figure out a way to process the music and process it quicker and better. So we created our own digital software, our own API, if you will. And what that piece of software does is literally, against the database of 700 or whatever the database is, it literally just says, okay, I want you to find any releases that came in between this date and that date and pull down all this data, right? So we're getting the ISRC codes, we're getting the images, we're getting the links from Spotify and from Amazon and from Apple Music. Too much data actually is coming through to us now, but we're in this remarkable space of being able to understand a little bit better what is happening within the scene, and therefore how to react, how to navigate, where the encouragement is needed and all of that. And I'm using those little examples just to underscore this huge resurgence in music consumption. And this isn't specific to the UK, this is global. It's not specific to the Christian and gospel scene either, it's global. And in the short presentation that I have, you'll see a little bit more of that data. But I really wanted to create some context, or give you some context as to, this is happening in spite of Step Forward. This is happening in spite of the challenges that we're having. It's happening in spite of any one group. There's a move here. Music, we all know the power of music to infiltrate spaces that words can't reach. And I think that God is doing something really significant. And it didn't just start yesterday or last year. It's been going on for time, but we're seeing the fruit of it in a way that we're thinking, wow, how did we miss this? Right? Or how did we not see the gravity of this and understand it better? So I'm going to share some slides now, just a very quick one, and I'll talk through. Please don't judge me if you happen to see my entire work screen and you see 30 tabs open. Don't judge me. I'm a workaholic, right? And it's just easier to have the tabs at your fingertips rather than creating anything else. So don't judge me on that, please. Let's see if I can get this up. So let me share screen, share screen here. And let's see if it's still there. Yep, it's still there. So share that. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, perfect. If you want to go into presentation mode,
Yep.
you're great to go.
Fantastic. All right, so this slide here has a few artists, and I'll just mention them again because everybody has this amazing story behind the work that they're doing. And I'm a marketing head, so stories are a big deal to me, and I like sharing the stories because sometimes it just underscores the extent to which things are developing and growing quickly. So the first artist there is Saint, and that's a young man who 7, 8 years ago started a YouTube platform called the Good Christian Music Blog. I don't know if anybody has come across that before. The name has now changed to Amen Worldwide. When he started, he was a graphic designer, still employed, full-time job. He started at that channel. That channel became the biggest Christian and gospel music YouTube channel in the UK. I think the numbers are still 400,000 followers. So much was doing so well that he quit his full-time job and became an artist as well. So first he was running the channel, the Good Christian Music Blog. That then got changed to Amen Worldwide. The channel is still up on YouTube if you want to check that out. And he then became an artist under the artist name Saint. And actually at this point in time, as you'll see as we go along, he's in the top 10 artists in the UK in terms of monthly Spotify listeners. So a significant thing from somebody trying to plug a need, right? Because he just realized that actually there wasn't a lot of spaces that were sharing the music that he liked and that he found was liked by a lot of other people. Pandemic hit as well, and hey, everybody was onto YouTube, and his channel grew significantly, and it is still the biggest YouTube channel, certainly out of the UK, and globally, it still ranks up there as a significant space. Sorry, for people to go to find great music. And as I said, the progression is that he's now a certified artist in his own right. So just again, think of that journey. That journey is something that just happened within the last decade and a huge success story. Manor Collective. Manor Collective is this phenomenal group that is comprised of lots of some of the names that you may or may not know, but significant names as well, who are great artists in their own right. Junior Gar is an artist who came over from the States. He was based in the States for a little while, came back to the UK, was signed to Integrity's imprint called Running Club Records. Is an artist in his own right, started the Spirituals, which has gone on to do really significant things as a choir. And again, is one of those artists that is really cool. Called Out Music is perhaps the top emerging artist in the scene, is now signed to Integrity Music as well. And for our awards was the top male artist for like 3 consecutive years. Really significant guy. And probably just to pinpoint one other in that group, Ellie Limebear, who again needs very little introduction in it all. Perhaps the UK's Lauren Daigle. probably just to throw that out there, right? Just a really significant artist, the daughter of Martin Smith, who was a member, founding member of Delirious. You guys will probably remember that. So significant in terms of pedigree, if you will. And what these guys did, they came together. They literally just realized that there were friendships there, got together, started creating music. So this wasn't a super group formed, One Direction type thing to combat Maverick City or anything else. It was just a natural synergy there between these guys. Came together, they've produced significant music, and those relationships, they're still going, those relationships are still there. And Warehouse Worship, I dropped them in here just as a case study because Warehouse Worship came out of the blue 3 years ago, and they were Manchester based, realizing that there was an opening and seeing this fearlessness, this Gen Z, just approach to just getting things done. They started doing warehouse worship events. So they didn't have any music. They were singing other people's music at the time. Started this amazing gathering of like-minded people. They really tapped into the university audience. And they started doing events primarily in Copperbox in London, which is like a 5,000 capacity. They were selling out. Literally every time they did these events, they were selling out, and they had this very simple marketing strategy of forcing people to come out for the gathering, the worship, rather than for a big name artist. So they never announced any of their headline acts, but they always ensured that they had some of the top names coming through. That strategy worked really well for them. To date, they have had close to 50,000 people coming through their events. They've done a number of them throughout the year. And on the back of that, and seeing how successful they were, they are now signed. They're signed to Platoon, which is an imprint, if you will, under Apple Music. And they just released their first project, which has seen a number of number ones in our chart system as well. So it's just literally pinpointing three. And this is three of, I could easily pick and talk about 10 or 20 such examples of people who are just doing phenomenally well. Perhaps wasn't there a decade ago, but have just really come out of the blue and doing significant stuff. I wanted to just literally underscore what is happening. And as I said, just reiterate the point that what we're seeing happening in the UK is not so much a UK specific thing, but there's a global shift and a global move. And we're part of that story, which is in some ways encouraging as well, because it means that we're on track, we're on trend, if you will. So the IFPI, which is kind of like one of the main organizations that literally research and engage with music, their report just found that we're listening to music more than ever before. And you can probably attest this just by your own Spotify playlist, if you will. We're consuming a lot more music than we ever were. And we're engaging with the music via more methods as well. So it's not just the traditional scenarios now. There's different, more creative approaches that people are using to reach us with music. Within the study, they found that an average of 20 hours extra, or 20 hours rather, was spent each week listening to music. And that's significant. And you can look at your own time scale or your own week and just see how much you consume music from the various artists, discovering and stuff like that. The audio streaming market continues to grow. With so many genres around, the demand is huge and the diversity. I mean, when we started AstepFWD, chill hop lo-fi wasn't a thing, right? But as I pointed out, Saint and Amen Worldwide and the Good Christian Music blog, that literally was what they jumped onto. They felt they found that that was an opening, that was a space that nobody was really occupying, and they jumped on it. So you think of Jonathan Ogden and think of Rivers and Robots. They were pioneers of that sound and that vibe and that feel. And where we are now, chill hop lo-fi is a thing so significant that record labels around the world are jumping on it, and we see music, everything going down that route as well. So those are just some of the things, and we understand, again, coming post-pandemic, just the significance of music to health, mental health, and well-being. I mean, I am excited about Christian and gospel music, so forgive me if I sound like I'm just really just pushing this thing a lot. But there is just so much going on, and as I said, the rise of Christian music isn't just a fluke thing. It's something that is tracked. There's data to support this, and there's a new development that I can share here in a moment that will also underscore just how this is being seen, not just globally, but even in the UK. So as this says, Christian and gospel music is one of the fastest growing genres among young audience, not just in the US, but globally, with the average listener spending 19% more time with music of that nature. This is something that we did in the last couple of months. Ahead of this presentation, I went through, I'm a nerd, I'm a data person, so I love checking stats and figures as well. And I was comparing this even just last night to other genres in the UK just to see how Christian and gospel stacks up. And I'm like, we are growing so fast. It's phenomenal, right? In terms of just how the sound, the message is permeating all areas of society. And we can be proud of the fact that our top 10 artists in the UK accumulatively have like 5 million monthly listeners every month, right? So that's significant. And that was something that was unheard of 10 years ago, right? And when you stack this up alongside other local genres like grime or R&B soul or jazz and stuff, then you begin to realize that, whoa, this is trending upwards very sharply. And what does this mean for 3 years down the line? It's really significant. So some artists for your playlist, if you don't already have them on there, these are the guys, some of the guys anyway, that are making strides in the UK. Limo Blaze is tracking at 1 million monthly listeners, just him alone. Sunday is another new artist that's based in the UK doing significant things and has a very unique sound to him. Definitely one of the ones that I'd recommend you check out. UG Official was a mainstream gospel artist that has converted to Christian, well, is a Christian now, and has brought his 400,000 Instagram followers over with him, so to speak, because he is blatantly Christian, unapologetic, and hammering away at it and seeing lives transformed on a daily, weekly basis. Jarub is a really interesting character that I would also recommend you check out. He was on The Voice as well, so had some huge success there. But when you're talking about pop music, just brilliant, brilliant vocals, man, you need to check him out. Anatoria, another Voice winner as well. A couple of years ago. And what's significant, sorry, I'll share another story here as well. Anatoria, I first came across Anatoria when I was at Big Church Festival. And if you want to understand that God is really working behind the scenes on this, or probably even leading us all the way, Anatoria was at the festival. Ty Tribbett was performing on stage. And I'll never forget this because, like you have those moments where like you can remember exactly what you were doing when this happened. I was watching the big screen. Ty Tribbett jumped off the stage, went into the pit area at the front, and he moved from side to side, running up, and because he's one of the most energetic artists in the world, right? And he was running from side to side, just engaging with the audience and stuff. And he just happened to stop somewhere and handed somebody the mic to sing along. Who was that person? Anatoria, right? This was before anybody, didn't even know she was doing music properly at that point in time. But she was captured on TBN, literally singing along to Ty Tribbett, and became an overnight success from that one viral moment, right? After that, she picked up and did The Voice. After that, she's now become, for us, a top-selling UK artist, and the rest is history. And that just again goes to show that there are just these moments along the journey that have been so significant, and we can see the results even today. So Anatolia is in there as well. Ellie Limebeer I mentioned earlier on, Saint I mentioned, called out, Jonathan Ogden. And just to probably round off on DC3, DC3 is a young rapper who came out of the woodworks like under 2 years ago. But one of those, like a young an old soul in a young body is probably a best way to describe him. Definitely one to check out. He's had so much popularity, so much people reaching out to him. He's had features on Complex and Mobo and all those different places since he's come out. And last year he was at our awards, and he was so young last year. His mom, we had to get permission. We had to send the invite to his mother. He was 17 years old at the time, right? But now DC3 is within the top 10. He's seen a rise of about 200,000 followers in the last couple of, well, in the last year, and just one of the artists that's just really significantly doing stuff at the moment. I put this in here just again to underscore the growth in music generally. And you can see just by the different regions and stuff that what we're looking at is a rise, and you would know this, I'm sure, from even just hearing reports in terms of the popularity of music and streaming and all those different things. Everything has gone to a whole different level in terms of the consumption of music, and all areas are seeing this increase, some areas more than others. We've seen that there's a huge rise in African content. So naturally, Afrobeat is leading the way now more than any other genre of music. And we're seeing that coming through in our charting system, which is probably why somebody like Limoblaze has, of all the UK artists, he has the biggest numbers of over 1 million listeners, because Afro gospel or Afrobeats is literally at the forefront. Latin America is what people are saying is the next trending space to come through, and we're just seeing this continue to grow. And again, what does this mean from the UK to the US, Africa, Asia, Europe? We're just seeing the message just really permeating all areas, all levels of society. And artists are using the platforms. I mean, the rise of TikTok. Again, Anatoria, just to use her as an example, Anatoria, just as one artist, has over 1 million followers on TikTok alone, right? So what we're seeing is there's an age in which artists are being more content driven, and they're using the tools that are available to them to really reach a generation as well. What I put this for the specific for the Christian Music Alliance, and I left it in there because I still think it's important to underscore the work that CMA is attempting to do, and the other entities across the UK, right? So at the CMA launch recently, what was significant for me was just the fact that people were seeing and understanding that the UK needs more infrastructure. It needs more mechanisms to support the talent, which is already racing ahead, right? What we're seeing is the industry is driven by the creatives at the moment, not by the infrastructure providing guardrails and guidance, so to speak. It's literally being driven by the creatives. Just 3 or 4 of those names that I could called out being one of them, Ellie Limebear, Limoblaze. Those are artists that are charting their own way. Limoblaze is signed to Reach Records in the US, right? He's probably one of the hardest workers. But then you look at the adults as well, or the older audiences. Governor B has had a significant role to play in even artists like DC3 coming through, because Governor B is the person that they looked up to. Governor B is still doing his thing, but not just doing his thing. He's actually shown or created a blueprint as to how things could be done. He's an author, right? He's a presenter, he's a podcaster, he's all these things and more. So artists are realizing that actually, yes, music, this is great, but the world is at our fingertips, so to speak. And how do we navigate this space? So what we're seeing is artistry is leading the way, but we're seeing the creative spectrum, or just this creative divergence in terms of people looking outwards and not just focusing on music as the only thing that they're using to get the message, get the gospel across, but they're using everything at their disposal. So literally everybody is becoming an influencer, and music is just really at the heart of it, which is really, really good to see. So this is DC3 at our awards last year. As I said, young man, just an old soul, and really somebody that you wonder, where has he come from? And I think what excites us is, okay, so he came through But imagine how many more young people are out there, creatively doing their thing and just waiting for that opportunity to shine and to step through. And imagine what that means for a generation which we already know is more receptive to the gospel message. It's like, whoa, bring it on, Jesus. We're so ready for it. So that's kind of our ethos here at Step Forward. More artists coming through, more music, more impact all around. Uh, and this is Anatolia. I'm going to just jump on to our website for a minute just to probably just show you at a glance just what it is that we're doing here at Step Forward. And I'll probably wrap up on that and just allow you to ask any questions that you want to ask. But I'll just pause for a moment just to say, are there any questions at the moment that anybody has?
Maybe wrap up, Dennis, and then we'll maybe come back to it at the end because I've definitely got one, but like maybe wrap up and we'll come to it at the end.
Okay, no problem at all. Or let me just see if I can find my screen with the our website, and then we'll just close off on that. Okay, so let me go back to share this again. Are you still seeing my screen?
Nope.
Okay, let me just share this.
Ah, we're seeing a very zoomed in version.
Can you see the full version now?
Can see like a URL, and it looks like you've sort of super zoomed in or something.
Okay, just bear with me. Let me know if you can see that.
Yes, perfect. You got it.
Okay, so this is the Step Forward website. Feel free to check it out when you get a chance. On here, literally all the music that comes in. As I said, there's a new music Friday. So every Friday, all the songs, all the new songs come in. They're put into playlists. As I said, we have 40 odd volunteers, so they go through the songs each week. They assign them to the various playlists. So there's literally something for everyone. And you can see the different categories there: a chill hop, lo-fi, contemporary worship, contemporary gospel. Every music you can think of is there. We're actively looking around. For example, we recognize that rock metal, which is part of my upbringing, because my best friend growing up was a rock and metal head, so that's one of the things I was really into from back in the days. We realized that that needs some support, some help. We're talking to some of the guys from the Extreme Tour and others from UCB and stuff to understand, okay, how can we better support that space? Poetry, spoken word, similar things. So what we're using is this tool just to understand what are the genres that probably need a bit more support, that there's just people who are really wanting to do music in those spaces but not as confident because the infrastructure is lacking, and we're really delving into those spaces. So we're using this not just to service those who are looking for music as a music discovery tool, but also as a developmental tool. If you go to the website, for example, and you click on charts, I'll probably jump to May. You'll see there all the different categories that are in existence for the charts. And if you click on any one, that will take you to the listing, and you'll see there the top 3 songs for that particular month, right? So first, second, third, and then you'll also see all the other tracks that were submitted in that genre. So what we're doing, that we're not just celebrating the top artists, we're trying to be fully inclusive. So whether you have a number 1 or a number 2 or number 3 makes no difference too much, because somebody can still access the music that you have. And this is, as I said, just to really end on this point, the reason for doing this is because we recognize just how much talent there is in the UK, how significant it is that people are working so hard. Everything is driven by the artist, and we just really have to support that. We feel led and driven to support that. So yeah, I hope you've learned a few things about the Christian and gospel music space. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dennis, thank you. Look, I'm a big music historian myself, and for someone who basically grew up with sleeve notes alone to find out anything, I've certainly gone back over time and sort of listened to a lot of these stories of a lot of the people that were out there on the front lines helping to build this stuff before it kind of came into consciousness. And your story in this movement really echoes for that, and I think it's a story that needs to be heard. So I really, really appreciate you sharing it. And I think what we'll do is in the follow-up email that everyone gets with this, we'll put links to all the pages that you showed so people can dive into that. So I think also you listen to it and you're like, man, I just got another 10 music recommendations I can't wait to dive into. So that's really, really cool. And thank you for that, and just can't wait to see where it goes next. Does anyone have a question for Dennis particularly? No pressure, but while you've got him here, does anyone have a question about maybe where he's gone, where it's going to, just his perspective on this genre? Let me ask, is there anyone? Let me ask one then. Okay. Here's a question. Where does this go, Dennis? Like, you've talked about how we got here. Where does this go?
My heart is to see, that's a, a great question. My heart is to see the system that we've built for the UK replicated across as many countries as there are Christian and gospel artists. We have the equivalent of the Billboard charts. So in the US, it's the Billboard charts. In the UK, it's the official charts or the official chart company. I want to see the step forward charts get replicated in, what does it mean to have a French Christian charts or Ghanaian Christian charts or Jamaican Christian charts, whatever it might be, wherever there are Christian and gospel artists needing some support and additional help in platforming and getting the message out, why not? Because the mainstream is never going to cater for us, and why should it, right? So can we build ecosystems that better support the creative talent and get the word out? One of the big developments that is likely to happen, and I'm saying it out loud even here because I'm trusting that God is already at work. We're currently in conversation with the official charts company. 12 years ago, they launched the official Christian and Gospel albums chart. But that kind of, if you go in on that chart now, you'll see all US names or names other than the UK. Let's just put it that way. And we believe that that is something that needs to change because we really need our local stories, our local artists and talent. We need that to shine. So by God's grace, in the next couple of weeks, you'll probably hear that we have a partnership with the official Christian and Gospel albums chart, which means that singles are covered, peer driven, and albums are covered, sales driven. It means that all across the full spectrum of music, singles or EPs or albums, will have data coming in to better resource and better support the creative talent out there. That's my heart. Yeah.
And man, if it's God's plan, it's going to happen. And I think, look, what we'll find, Dennis, and I think this is the thing that I pray about and think about is there won't be a separate charts, right? There's just the charts, right?
Yes.
And I think that's the fascinating thing. I think it's like, I think we love listening to music with this message,
Mm-hmm.
but blended in with other stuff, right? And I think like the future of this is where the charts become the charts, and music with a message that it delivers is well represented in that. And I think that's where it really, really grows. And I think it's happening now, right? With Stormzy and Cleo Soul and Ray and Coldplay and all these types of bands and all these types of songs. I think that for me is the really, really exciting thing. And LA Lion Bear going from here. Do you know what I mean? It's like a case of it's yeah, I think that's a really exciting thing. And I think it can
Absolutely.
get there. And it's going to be
Absolutely.
driven, as you said, by music has always been driven by young people, young creative people, and the DC3s of this world. It will be driven by them, and people
Yes.
like us will just have to somehow hold on to the bumper and just come along for the ride. But that's the way it should be. You know what I mean? That's the way it
That's
should be.
right.
It's exciting.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
exciting. Thanks so much, man. Like we'll share Dennis's slides and the way to get in touch with him and all the charts and all that kind of good stuff. And enjoy the rest of the afternoon listening to some of this incredible music we've been exposed to. But Dennis, just want to encourage you, keep doing what you're doing. It's just the start. You've come a long way, but there's a long way to go. And people
Absolutely.
like you are going to get us there. So thanks, man. Really appreciate your time, and
Brilliant.
thanks for everybody for joining.
No problem at all. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you guys.
See ya.
Bye.